The Voraxian Empire had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Their ships were so many that they could block the light of suns. Their armies had crushed 1,000 species. Their name meant fear in every language across the galaxy. When the Empire found a new world, they did not ask questions. They simply took it. This was the way of things. This was how the universe worked. The strong ruled. The weak served. It had always been so. So when Voraxian scouts found a small blue planet at the edge of empty space, no one thought it was important. The planet was called Earth by its people. These people called themselves humans. They had only learned to travel between stars a few decades ago. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were weak. Their small colonies spread across only a handful of nearby worlds. The Empire's assessment was simple. Classification, Gamma 7. Pre-galactic civilization. No threat. Minimal resources. Easy conquest. Ambassador Kethral was given the job of bringing Earth into the Empire. He was a tall creature with gray skin and 4 arms. His family had served the Emperor for 600 generations. He had conquered 11 worlds in his career. This assignment bored him. A waste of my talents, he told his officers as his dreadnought flew toward the Sol system. These humans are nothing. Primitive creatures on a wet rock. We will be finished before the next cycle. His ship was enormous. It was 3 kilometers long, covered in weapons that could burn cities to ash in seconds. He brought only this one ship, because bringing more would have been insulting to his status. One dreadnought was more than enough for a species that had barely learned to walk among the stars. Kethral entered the Sol system without hiding. He wanted the humans to see him coming. He wanted them to feel fear. Fear made conquest easier. His ship stopped above Earth, blocking the sun over the great cities below. He broadcast his message on every frequency the humans used. People of Earth. His voice echoed across the planet. I am Ambassador Kethral of the Eternal Voraxian Empire. Your world and your species now belong to the Empire. You will provide workers, resources, and soldiers as we require. You will accept our laws and our rule. This is not a request. This is your new reality. Resistance is not possible. Compliance is your only path forward. He waited for panic. He waited for desperate pleas. He had heard them so many times before from so many species. Instead, a calm voice answered him. It belonged to a human woman named Amara Okonkwo. She was the Secretary General of something called the United Terran Coalition. Ambassador Kethral, she said. Her voice was steady. We have received your message. We request 1 week to discuss your terms among our people. Kethral laughed. His officers laughed with him. You request? He found this amusing. Primitive creature. You do not make requests. You obey. But I am generous. I will give you 3 of your days. Use them wisely. Say goodbye to your freedom. He cut the communication and turned to his officers. They delay because they hope for rescue. They will learn that no rescue comes. No one defies the Empire. What Kethral did not know was that humanity had been watching the stars for a very long time. 100 years ago, a Voraxian survey probe had crashed on Earth's moon. Humans had found it. They had taken it apart piece by piece. They had studied every wire, every circuit, every strange material. They had learned to read the data stored inside. What they found had terrified them. The probe contained records of the Voraxian Empire. It showed maps of conquered territories spanning thousands of light years. It showed images of enslaved species working in mines until they died. It showed planets burned bare because their people had resisted. It showed the Empire's methods, brutality, fear, and absolute control. Humanity had looked at this information and made a decision. They would not be victims. For a century, humans had worked in secret. They had studied Voraxian technology and then gone beyond it. They had built weapons that the Empire could not imagine. They had created defenses that broke the rules of physics as the galaxy understood them. They had watched Voraxian communications from the shadows, learning their language, their strategies, their weaknesses. They knew how the Empire thought. They knew how it fought. They knew how it conquered. And they had prepared. The United Terran Coalition was not what it appeared to be. On the surface, humanity looked like a young species still learning to walk among the stars. Their public ships were slow. Their public weapons were weak. This was intentional. Beneath the surface, in hidden facilities on moons and asteroids, humanity had built something else entirely. They had built a military that could make empires tremble. They had created technology that would make the ancient Voraxians look like children playing with toys. Secretary General Okonkwo knew all of this as she spoke with Ambassador Kethral. She knew what was hidden in the dark spaces between planets. She knew what humanity was capable of. She asked for a week not because she needed time to surrender. She asked for a week to make final preparations, to position assets, to ensure that when the moment came, humanity would be ready. Kethral gave her 3 days. It was more than enough. In secret bases across the solar system, human officers received their orders. Ships that had never been seen by alien eyes powered up their engines. Weapons that existed only in classified files were armed and ready. Soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this moment took their positions. Humanity had always known this day would come. They had always known that the darkness between the stars held monsters. They had chosen not to hide from those monsters. They had chosen to become something that monsters would fear. On Earth, Amara Okonkwo stood before a window in her office, looking up at the massive shadow of the Voraxian dreadnought blocking the sun. Her advisors stood behind her, waiting for her decision. "Are we ready?" she asked quietly. "Yes, Madam Secretary," her military commander replied. "All assets are in position. We are waiting for your order." Amara nodded slowly. She thought about the 40 billion humans living across Earth and its colonies. She thought about the generations who had worked in secret to prepare for this moment. She thought about the future they were about to fight for. 3 days, she said softly. "He gave us 3 days." She turned to face her advisors. Her eyes were calm. Her voice was steady. "We will only need 1. On the morning of the 3rd day, Ambassador Kethral stood on the command deck of his dreadnought. He was in a good mood. Today, Earth would surrender. Today, another world would join the Empire's endless list of conquests. He activated the communication channel to Earth's surface. He expected to see fear on the human faces. He expected begging. He expected surrender. Secretary General Amara Okonkwo appeared on his screen. She sat behind a simple desk. Her hands were folded in front of her. Her face showed nothing. "Ambassador," she said politely, "thank you for your patience." "Your 3 days are finished," Kethral replied. "Have your people accepted their place in the Empire?" Amara looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes were calm. Her voice was clear. "No." Kethral blinked. He was not sure he had heard correctly. "What did you say?" "I said no, Ambassador. Earth refuses your terms. We will not join your empire. We will not provide workers or resources or soldiers. We will not accept your laws. The answer is no." Kethral stared at the screen. In 600 generations, his family had conquered 11 worlds. Not once had anyone simply said no. The word felt strange to him, like a sound from a forgotten language. Then he began to laugh. "You refuse?" He laughed harder. His officers joined him. The sound filled the command deck. "Primitive creature, you do not seem to understand your situation. I have enough weapons on this ship to burn every city on your planet. You cannot refuse." Amara did not react to his laughter. She simply waited for him to finish. "I understand my situation perfectly, Ambassador," she said. "I wonder if you understand yours." Kethral stopped laughing. Something in her voice made him uncomfortable. She spoke like someone who knew something he did not. "You threaten me?" he asked. "You, with your tiny ships and your primitive weapons?" "I do not threaten," Amara replied. "I simply give you a choice. Leave our system now, and we will let you go in peace. Stay, and you will discover why that would be a mistake." Kethral's 4 hands clenched into fists. Rage filled his chest. This human dared to speak to him this way. This insect dared to challenge the Empire. "You will learn your place," he snarled. He turned to his weapons officer. "Target the orbital station above their northern continent. Destroy it." The weapons officer obeyed. The dreadnought's main cannon fired. A beam of burning light crossed the darkness of space and struck the human station. The station exploded. Metal and glass scattered into the void. 47 humans died in that moment, their bodies lost to the cold emptiness of space. Kethral turned back to the screen, expecting to see horror on the human leader's face. Instead, he saw something else, something that made his blood run cold. Amara Okonkwo was smiling. It was a small smile, a sad smile, but it was there. "You have made your choice," she said quietly. "Goodbye, Ambassador." The screen went dark. Kethral turned to his officers. What is happening? Restore the communication. Before anyone could answer, every alarm on the ship began to scream at once. Sir. The sensor officer's voice was filled with panic. Unknown energy readings all around us. Something is happening to space itself. Kethral looked at the main display. What he saw made no sense. The stars were bending. The darkness around his ship was twisting and folding like fabric being crushed in a giant hand. What is this? He demanded. What are they doing? No one could answer him. The dreadnought shook violently. Metal screamed as impossible forces pulled at the hull. Officers fell from their stations. Lights flickered and died. Kethral grabbed his command chair to stay standing. Through the observation windows, he saw something that broke his understanding of reality. Space itself was collapsing around his ship. The stars were disappearing one by one, swallowed by a darkness that was more than darkness. His last transmission to the Empire was 3 seconds of screaming static. Then there was nothing. The dreadnought was gone. Not destroyed, not damaged. Simply gone, as if it had never existed at all. On Earth, in her office, Amara Okonkwo closed her eyes. She thought about the 47 people who had died on that station. She would remember their names. She would honor their sacrifice. Then she opened her eyes and turned to her military commander. It worked, she said. The spatial collapse field performed as designed. Yes, Madam Secretary. The dreadnought has been removed from normal space. It now exists in a dimension where... He paused, searching for simple words. Where the rules are different. Very different. Amara nodded. What happens now? They will send more ships. Many more. I know. Are we ready? Yes, Madam Secretary. We are ready. They did not have to wait long. The Varaxian High Command received Kethral's final transmission within hours. At first, they thought it was a trick. Then they thought it was a malfunction. Then they became concerned. They sent a full battle group to investigate. 12 capital ships, 200 support vessels, enough firepower to conquer a solar system, enough weapons to burn 100 worlds. The battle group arrived at the edge of the Sol system. Their commander, Admiral Vethkai, was a veteran of countless conquests. He had destroyed civilizations that had existed for longer than humanity had been walking upright. Find the dreadnought, he ordered. Find out what happened. His sensors swept the system. They found Earth. They found human ships, small and weak-looking, positioned around their planet. They found debris from the destroyed station, but they did not find the dreadnought. Sir, his sensor officer reported, we cannot locate Ambassador Kethral's ship. It is not in this system. But that should be impossible. Our records show it never left. Admiral Vethkai felt the first touch of doubt. Something was wrong here. Something was very wrong. Contact the human government, he ordered. Demand an explanation. The communication was established. A human officer appeared on screen. Voraxian fleet, the human said calmly. You have entered restricted space. You are advised to leave immediately. Restricted? Vethkai leaned forward. This system is now under Imperial control. Where is Ambassador Kethral? What have you done with his ship? The ambassador made a choice, the human replied. He chose poorly. Now you have the same choice. Leave, or stay. We recommend leaving. Vethkai slammed his fist against his chair. You dare threaten an Imperial battle group? You will tell me what happened to the ambassador, and then you will surrender. Or I will destroy every living thing in this system. The human officer was silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was sad. We hoped you would be wiser than him. We are sorry you are not. The screen went dark. All around the battle group, space began to twist and fold. None of the Varaxian ships escaped. None of them were destroyed. They simply stopped existing in normal space, pulled into dimensions where their weapons did not work and their engines could not fly. When it was over, the humans found one survivor, Commander Tuethval, drifting in a life pod at the edge of the system. He had been close enough to a hyperspace lane to be thrown clear before the collapse field took his ship. They let him live. They let him go. They wanted the Empire to know. And with Tuethval went a message. We kept one of your officers alive. He will explain what he witnessed. We recommend you listen carefully. The Empire was about to learn that the universe had changed. Commander Tuethval sat in a dark room on the Varaxian homeworld. His 4 arms were wrapped around himself. His eyes stared at nothing. He had not slept in many days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw impossible things. The Imperial intelligence officers sat across from him. They had been asking questions for hours. They did not believe his answers. "Tell us again," the lead officer said. His voice was tired and frustrated. "Tell us what you saw." Thval shook his head slowly. "You will not believe me. I do not believe myself. But I will tell you because you must know. Everyone must know." He took a deep breath and began to speak. When the battle group entered the human system, everything seemed normal at first. Their ships were small. Their defenses looked weak. Admiral Vethkai was confident. We all were. We had conquered 1,000 species. What could these humans possibly do against us? Yithval's voice became quieter. Then the Admiral spoke with them. He demanded answers. He made threats. And then space itself became our enemy. The intelligence officers leaned forward. The stars began to move. Yithval continued. Not the way stars should move. They bent and twisted. The darkness between them started folding like cloth being crushed in a fist. Our sensors went mad. They showed readings that made no sense. Dimensions that should not exist. Energies that our science said were impossible. He looked at the officers with hollow eyes. The humans did not fight us. They did not fire weapons at our ships. They simply changed the space around us. They reached into the fabric of reality and tore it apart. "That is impossible," one officer said flatly. "No species has that technology. Not even the ancient races before us." "I know," Yithval whispered. "I know it is impossible. But I watched it happen. I watched our ships disappear into holes in space. I watched them get pulled into places where our physics does not work, where time moves differently, where matter behaves in ways that break the mind." He began to shake. "The humans called it something. I heard them say the words before my ship was caught. They called it the Blackout Protocol. They have weapons that can cut off entire star systems from hyperspace. They can seal a region of space so completely that nothing can enter or leave. Forever." The intelligence officers exchanged looks. This was dangerous information. If it was true, everything the Empire believed about its power was wrong. "There is more," Yithval said. "Before my life pod was thrown clear, I saw their ships. Their real ships. Not the small vessels they show to the galaxy. These were different. They moved without moving. They appeared in the middle of our formations instantly, without crossing the space between. They were there, and then they were somewhere else. And we could not track them. We could not target them. We could not even understand how they were doing it." He buried his face in his hands. "We thought we were conquering a primitive species. We were walking into a trap that had been prepared for 100 years. The intelligence report was sent to the highest levels of the Imperial government. It was classified, sealed, and locked away. The Emperor himself read it. His response was fury. Emperor Jael the Undying had ruled for 3,000 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had crushed rebellions that spanned galaxies. He had never not once been defied like this. "These humans think they can challenge us?" His voice echoed through the throne room. "They think their tricks and toys can stand against the Empire? I will teach them what it means to face the Voraxian might." He turned to his admirals. "Mobilize the Grand Armada. Every ship, every soldier. We will go to this Earth ourselves and show them the price of defiance." His daughter, Fleet Princess Viral, stepped forward. She was young by Voraxian standards, only 400 years old, but she was the finest military mind in the Empire. She had never lost a battle. "Father," she said carefully, "perhaps we should consider what Commander Yithval reported. If the humans truly have such technology—" "Lies," the Emperor roared. "Cowardly lies from a broken officer who watched his fleet fail. The humans have no such power. They are insects, and insects are crushed." Viral bowed her head. She knew better than to argue when her father was in this state. But she remembered Yithval's words. She remembered the fear in his eyes. That fear was real. The Grand Armada gathered. 4,000 warships, the largest fleet in living memory. Millions of soldiers. Weapons, capable of destroying stars. The full power of an empire that had ruled for 12,000 years. Fleet Princess Viral took command. As she led the Armada toward human space, she sent one final message to Earth. "People of Earth, I am Fleet Princess Viral of the Eternal Voraxian Empire. You have destroyed 2 of our fleets. You have killed thousands of our soldiers. You have refused the Emperor's mercy. Now there will be no mercy. Surrender immediately, or face complete destruction. This is your last chance." The human response came quickly. It was not from their government, it was from their military. "Fleet Princess Virel, your forces may enter Sol space. They will not exit. This is not a threat. This is physics. Turn back now. There will be no other warning." Virel read the message 3 times. Something in those words made her hesitate. They did not sound like desperation. They did not sound like a bluff. They sounded like a fact. But she had her orders. She had her duty. And she had her pride. "All ships," she commanded. "Enter the Sol system. Attack formation. Show no mercy." 4,000 ships jumped into hyperspace. What followed lasted 3 days. The humans did not fight the way other species fought. They did not meet the Armada with their own fleet. They did not fire weapons in the traditional sense. They used space itself as their weapon. Ships vanished in the middle of formations. Commanders lost contact with their vessels one by one. Sensors showed impossible readings. Ships that existed in multiple places at once. Ships that had stopped moving through time. Ships that were being compressed into points smaller than atoms. Virel watched her armada disappear around her. She gave orders that could not be followed. She called for reinforcements that could not reach her. She fired weapons that hit nothing. On the 3rd day, her flagship was the last ship remaining. She stood on the command deck, surrounded by empty screens and silent stations. Outside the windows, she could see her armada. All 4,000 ships were still there, but they were not moving. They were frozen in space, caught in bubbles of stopped time. Millions of soldiers, alive but unreachable, locked in a prison made of physics itself. The humans had not killed them. That was the worst part. They had simply kept them. A human ship appeared beside her flagship. Small, unarmed, a simple transport vessel. A voice came through her communications. It was calm. It was polite. It was terrifying. "Fleet Princess Virel, you are the last. We are sending a life pod to bring you home. Your father needs to understand what happened here. Your soldiers are alive. They will remain alive, frozen in temporal stasis, until your empire meets our terms. Go home. Tell your father. Tell everyone." Virel was placed in a life pod. As it carried her away from the battlefield, she looked back at her frozen armada. 4,000 ships. Millions of soldiers. The pride of the Voraxian Empire, defeated without a single human ship being scratched. She closed her eyes and began to understand what humanity truly was. The Galactic Assembly met on a station at the center of known space. Representatives from 1,000 species gathered in a chamber so large it had its own weather. They came to discuss the impossible. A young species had destroyed the most powerful fleet in history without losing a single ship. The news had spread across the galaxy like fire. The Voraxian Empire, the terror of 1,000 worlds, had been humiliated by creatures who had only learned to travel between stars within living memory. Everyone wanted to understand how. Everyone wanted to know what came next. Fleet Princess Virel had returned home broken. She spoke to her father in private. No one knew exactly what she told him, but those who saw the Emperor afterward said he looked like a different creature. The rage was gone. In its place was something that might have been fear. 3 weeks after the battle, humanity sent its first ambassador to the Galactic Assembly. Her name was Dr. Elena Vasquez. She was 73 years old, with white hair and kind eyes. She walked with a cane. She looked like someone's grandmother, not the representative of a species that had just defeated an empire. The chamber fell silent as she walked slowly to the speaking platform. 1,000 alien eyes watched her, some with curiosity, some with fear, some with hope. She reached the platform and stood quietly for a moment, looking around at the assembled representatives. When she spoke, her voice was soft but clear. The translation systems carried her words to every corner of the chamber. "My name is Elena Vasquez. I speak for the people of Earth. I thank you for allowing me to address this assembly." She paused, gathering her thoughts. For 100 years, humanity watched the galaxy from the shadows. We listened to your communications. We studied your histories. We learned who you were and how you lived, and we saw things that broke our hearts. She touched a control on the podium. Images appeared in the air above her. Images of Voraxian conquests. Enslaved species working in mines until they died. Planets burned bare because their people had resisted, children taken from their families to serve in imperial armies. We saw an empire built on suffering. Elena continued. We saw species exterminated for refusing to bow. We saw the strong destroy the weak, simply because they could. And we saw this assembly do nothing. Many representatives looked away in shame. Others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The truth was painful, but it was truth. We do not blame you, Elena said. You were afraid. The Empire was too powerful. Fighting them meant destruction. So you made peace with evil. You accepted things that should never be accepted. You told yourselves that there was no other way. She leaned forward on her cane. But there is another way. Humanity found it. We built technology that the galaxy has never seen. We created weapons that make the Empire's greatest ships look like toys. We did not do this because we wanted power. We did not do this because we wanted to rule. We did this because someone had to. The chamber was completely silent. The Voraxian Empire has committed crimes against sentient life for 12,000 years, Elena said. Today, those crimes end. Here are humanity's terms. She listed them slowly and clearly. First, the Empire will withdraw all military forces from the outer spiral immediately. All conquered territories will be freed. Second, every species currently enslaved by the Empire will be released. Their homeworlds will be returned to them. Third, Emperor Jael and his command council will stand trial for crimes against sentient life. They will face justice for what they have done. Fourth, the Grand Armada will remain in temporal stasis until these terms are met. When the Empire complies, their soldiers will be returned safely. Not before. Elena looked around the chamber once more. If the Empire refuses these terms, humanity will implement sector isolation. The entire Voraxian territory will be cut off from galactic hyperspace. Permanently, their 47 star systems will become an island, unable to reach the rest of the galaxy ever again. The representatives erupted in noise, shouting, arguing, demanding explanations. The idea was too big to understand. Cutting off an empire from hyperspace? It was impossible. It was insane. But then they remembered the Grand Armada. 4,000 ships, frozen in time. And they began to believe. The Voraxian representative rose from his seat. His face was twisted with rage. You cannot do this, he screamed. You are nothing. You are insects. The Empire will crush you. We will find a way. We will destroy you all. Elena looked at him calmly. The Empire has already tried, she said simply. 3 times. Your best ships, your finest commanders, your most powerful weapons. They are all frozen in a field around our home. You are welcome to try again. The result will be the same. The representative had no answer. He sat down slowly, his rage turning to despair. The Galactic Assembly debated for days. Some species supported humanity. They had suffered under the Empire for too long. They wanted freedom. They wanted justice. Other species were frightened. If humanity could do this to the Empire, what could they do to everyone else? Was this liberation or just a new form of conquest? Elena answered their fears patiently. We do not want to rule the galaxy, she told them. We do not want an empire of our own. We want only one thing. For the strong to stop destroying the weak. For 12,000 years, might has made right in this galaxy. We are here to end that. Not through conquest, through consequence. But the Empire did not accept humanity's terms. Instead, they chose a different path. One night, 2 weeks after Elena's speech, assassins came to her quarters. They were Voraxian special forces, the best killers the Empire had. They bypassed every security system. They avoided every guard. They reached Elena's room without being seen. She was sitting at her desk when they entered. Reading, waiting. She looked up at them with sad eyes. I expected you sooner, she said quietly. Your emperor is a predictable creature. The assassins did their work. It was quick. When they left, Dr. Elena Vasquez was dead. 73 years old, someone's grandmother. Gone. The news reached Earth within minutes. Humanity's response came within the hour. It was broadcast to every species, every world, every station in the galaxy. The voice was artificial, calm, and absolutely final. The Voraxian Empire has rejected the path of peace. They have chosen violence. They have murdered our ambassador. So be it. Humanity offered mercy. That offer is now withdrawn. A pause. Then the voice continued. The Voraxian Empire is now banned from Earth-protected space. This sector is now completely blocked. All hyperspace lanes connecting Voraxian territory to the galactic network are being collapsed. This process is irreversible. These terms are non-negotiable. Another pause. Longer this time. To the soldiers of the Grand Armada, you will remain in temporal stasis indefinitely. To the species enslaved by the Empire, help is coming. To the Galactic Assembly, humanity did not want this. Remember who made this choice necessary. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, beings looked up at the sky and wondered what would happen next. They did not have to wonder for long. The Voraxian Empire discovered the meaning of humanity's words 3 hours after the broadcast. It began with the hyperspace lanes. These invisible roads through folded space had connected the Empire's 47 star systems for thousands of years. Ships used them to travel between worlds in days instead of centuries. Without them, each system would be alone, separated by distances too vast to cross. One by one, the lanes collapsed. Voraxian ships traveling between systems were thrown back into normal space, their drives overloaded and burned out. Navigation computers showed only darkness where routes had existed for millennia. Scouts sent to investigate found nothing, not debris, not energy signatures, just empty space where pathways should have been. The Empire's scientists worked frantically to understand what had happened. Their answer was terrifying. The hyperspace lanes had not been destroyed, they had been erased from existence, as if they had never been created in the first place. The fabric of space itself had been rewritten. Emperor Jael ordered his remaining fleets to force their way out of Imperial territory. They would create new lanes. They would punch through whatever barrier the humans had created. The ships that tried did not return. They entered the barrier zone and simply stopped. Sensors showed them frozen in place, caught at the edge of a wall made of twisted spacetime. Alive but unreachable. More hostages for humanity's growing collection. Days passed, then weeks, then months. The Voraxian Empire, which had ruled 1,000 species across 1,000 worlds, was now alone. 47 star systems connected to each other but cut off from everything else. An island in an infinite ocean with no boats and no bridges. The Galactic Assembly sent probes to investigate. The data they returned showed something that scientists struggled to explain. A sphere of altered space surrounded Voraxian territory, extending billions of kilometers in every direction. Within that sphere, the normal rules of physics had been changed. Hyperspace did not exist. Faster than light travel was impossible. Ships that entered the barrier zone could not leave. When asked how long the barrier would last, humanity's answer was always the same: until they learn. However long that takes. The galaxy changed in the years that followed. Humanity did not try to build an empire. They did not conquer worlds or enslave species. Instead, they offered protection. Any species that wanted to live in peace could ask for humanity's help. Any species threatened by aggressors could call for aid. The rules were simple. No more conquests, no more slavery, no more genocide. Any species that broke these rules would face the same fate as the Voraxian Empire: isolation, separation, exile from the galactic community. Some species resisted. They said humanity had no right to impose laws on the galaxy. They said freedom meant the freedom to do anything, including harm others. Humanity's response was patient but firm. You are free to do as you wish within your own territory. But if you choose to harm others, you will do so alone. Cut off. Isolated. This is not punishment. It is consequence. One by one, the aggressive species learned this lesson. Small empires that tried to expand found themselves blocked. Warlords who terrorized their neighbors found their hyperspace lanes disappearing. The strong discovered that strength without justice led only to solitude. Inside the Voraxian barrier, centuries passed. The empire did not die quickly. At first, Emperor Jael raged and plotted and sent fleet after fleet against the barrier. All failed. Then he grew quiet. Then he grew old. Then he died, broken and bitter, having outlived his own legend. His successors were different. Without conquest, without expansion, without the constant rush of new resources and new slaves, the empire was forced to look inward. Civil wars erupted as factions fought for control of shrinking resources. Old systems of power collapsed. New ideas emerged from the chaos. It took 500 years for the Voraxian people to truly change. 500 years of isolation, of struggle, of slow transformation. New leaders rose who had never known the old empire's cruelty. New generations grew up learning that cooperation was better than domination. The slaves were freed not because the humans demanded it, but because the Voraxians finally understood why it was wrong to keep them. When the new Voraxian government finally petitioned for release, they did not beg. They did not demand. They simply presented the facts. They had changed. They had freed their captive species. They had tried their war criminals. They had built a new society based on cooperation and respect. Humanity reviewed their petition for 7 years. They studied every claim. They interviewed former slaves. They analyzed every piece of data. They wanted to be sure. Then the barriers came down. The Voraxians emerged into a galaxy transformed. Dozens of species now lived under Earth's protection. Trade routes crossed territories that had once been war zones. The Galactic Assembly had become a true governing body, with humanity quietly ensuring that its decisions were respected. The Grand Armada was released from temporal stasis. 4,000 ships, millions of soldiers, returned to normal time after 500 years. To them, only 3 days had passed. They found their empire changed beyond recognition, and a galaxy that had learned to live without fear. Some of the old soldiers could not accept the new reality. They called it weakness. They called it surrender. But most looked at the peaceful worlds around them and slowly began to understand. The final record of the interdiction era was entered into the Galactic Archive on the anniversary of humanity's first message to the galaxy. It was translated into 4,000 languages and stored on every world that requested it. The record said, the Voraxian Empire was banned. The sector was blocked. This was not done through greater cruelty or more powerful weapons. It was done through patience and principle. Humanity did not destroy their enemies. They simply refused to allow evil to continue unchallenged. For 12,000 years, the galaxy accepted a simple truth. The strong do what they wish, and the weak suffer what they must. Humanity rejected this truth. They proved that strength can serve justice instead of destroying it. Other species had the power to stop the empire. Only humanity had the will. Let this be remembered. Let this never be forgotten. The universe changed not because humans were stronger than everyone else, but because they decided that strength without justice was meaningless, and they were willing to prove it. On Earth, in a simple office overlooking the same city where Dr. Elena Vasquez had once worked, her great-great-grandson sat reading the archive entry. His name was Marcus Vasquez. He was 90 years old. He had spent his whole life helping to build the peace his ancestor had died for. He finished reading and looked out the window at the night sky. The stars were quiet tonight. The galaxy was at peace. He thought about the journey humanity had taken. From a small blue world watching the stars in fear, to the guardians of 1,000 species living in hope. It had not been easy. It had not been quick, but it had been worth it. We did it, grandmother, he said softly to the stars. We changed everything. Somewhere out there, among those distant lights, the galaxy continued turning. Species that had once lived in terror now slept without fear. Worlds that had been conquered were free again. Children who would have been slaves grew up knowing they had choices. All because one species had looked at the universe and refused to accept that cruelty was inevitable. All because humanity had decided to be something more than strong. They had decided to be good. And that had made all the difference.